Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to the University of Manchester Middle East Centre's online information on the Manchester Global Part-time MBA. Our presenter today is none other than Xavier Duran, the Director of MBA Programs at Manchester Business School. Xavier provides leadership and management support on academic delivery and program development issues for the Global MBA. He also advises and manages projects that contribute to improving the student experience. So there really is no one better to talk to you about the program and answer some of your questions. So please do feel free to use the chat feature to ask some of your questions, and we will answer some of them at the end of the session. Thank you very much for attending, and we do hope you enjoy the session. And thank you very much, Xavier, for being here as well. And I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, thank you, William. And I hope everybody can actually hear me loud and clear. Good afternoon or good evening, actually, depending on where in the Middle East you exactly are. It is still indeed just about good afternoon from here in Manchester, in a rather sunny Manchester, which is actually strange enough because we tend to get quite a bit of rain, but we've been having quite nice sunshine and quite nice weather now for quite a while, at least whilst we've actually been on lockdown. And it goes without saying that as our restrictions are starting to ease now and we're going to be able to go back to our normal lives, hopefully very soon, the rain will possibly come back again. But sure, that's a matter of life. In any case, as William says, I'm the MBA Programs Director here at Manchester Business School, part of the University of Manchester. And as such, I have oversight over our portfolio of MBA programs. So obviously our full-time MBA, which we deliver out of our premises here in Manchester. But indeed, I also look after our global MBA program, which we deliver from Manchester, indeed from Dubai, which is the site of our Middle East Center, and indeed as well from all our other centers in Shanghai, in Hong Kong, in Singapore, and indeed as well in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And we also offer the global MBA in partnership as well with other institutions. So in China, we also deliver it in partnership with Tongji University in Shanghai, and also with Fundação Getúlio Vargas, so FGB in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And indeed as well, we also have a partnership that I will briefly speak about later as part of this presentation with the Kelley School of Business, part of Indiana University in the United States, leading to a jointly delivered program and a dual MBA award. So my objective today is to give you a bit of information about our global MBA program. And as I said, I very, very briefly touch upon our Kelley-Manchester jointly delivered program. And perhaps just to give you a bit of an opportunity to get a bit more insight about not only the content of the program, the skills that you would acquire were you decide to join us, but indeed also to have more insight perhaps about the style of delivery of our program. So as you possibly know already, ours is what we call a blended learning program, which combines both face-to-face and online elements, so that not only you have the flexibility of achieving a world-class MBA program from the Manchester Business School, but indeed as well, so that you're in a position to flexibly go about your own career progression and your own life. So in other words, you don't have to put your life on hold to a full-time MBA program. So with no further delay, first of all, just to give you a bit of insight about Manchester, which is indeed the city from which we deliver our program, and indeed that inspires it. Manchester, and I don't know to what extent you actually know our city or indeed know much about it, other than our sporting prowess. So obviously, it goes without saying that we have two world leading football teams that I don't need to mention, but indeed we have a vibrant cultural scene. So we have some of the greatest musicians known the world over that come from this city. And indeed, we also are very, very well known for being the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, and indeed many developments since. Obviously here, particularly the University of Manchester, we discovered graphene technology, which is actually now caused a big revolution. It's said to be the material of the 21st century. And indeed, We also have a very, very, very strong scientific and humanities background, in that many social and technological developments have actually been made here in Manchester. Indeed, the center of it all has always been our university. So University of Manchester is where the first atom was actually split by Ernest Rutherford, as some of you may have already studied as part of your undergraduate degrees, or indeed even in secondary school. We built the first world's computer as well here in Manchester, and indeed at the University of Manchester. But indeed, we've also been very well known as a city for the creativity and the entrepreneurial spirit that comes with all the innovation and all the changes that we've always instigated from this city. So there's been plenty of social innovations as well, from the inception of the first suffragette movement that allowed women to have voting rights for the first time back in the early 1900s, to really spearheading a lot of social and cultural innovations the world over, in addition to those technical innovations that I've just spoken about. But most importantly, I want to focus on the MBA program, and particularly the way we actually deliver it. And before I do so, I very quickly wanted to draw your attention to what an MBA program is. And an MBA, beyond the obvious, obviously an MBA is a Master's of Business Administration, is what we call a general, a broad business and management qualification. And I'm not using broad or generic in a pejorative sense whatsoever, quite the opposite. So if many individuals decide to do a Master's in Arts or a Master's in Science, usually they will do it because they want to gain expertise on one specific area. May that be an MSc or a Master's in Science in Economics, or on Human Resource Management, or on Finance, or on Real Estate, or on Educational Leadership, just to mention some of the ones offered through the Middle East Center and offered by the University of Manchester. But indeed as well, it might be the case that you're looking at an MSc on operations management or marketing. They're actually getting you to specialize on one very specific function, one specific area. The MBA is the opposite. Rather than making you experts on an area, the MBA tends to attract people, individuals that are already having an area of expertise. Whether you actually work in finance, whether you are an accountant, whether you're a banker, whether you work in construction, whether you're a project manager, whether you work in IT, whether you're an engineer, it doesn't matter. You're doing an MBA simply because you want to get out of that silo, and you want to tell the world that you actually have a synthetic view that allows you to understand how organizations work and how we actually manage within them. And you want to use it as a passport to being able to get out of that pigeonhole that your organization may have already placed you in. You're an engineer, you're a project manager, you're an accountant. You want to convince them that you can actually understand the organizational functions, and that you can actually perhaps get beyond that glass ceiling, you can break through it, and you can actually perhaps take that more synthetic view that will allow you to look at the organization from above, that you can prepare strategy, you can take more senior roles that transcend specific subject or functional area. Therefore, the MBA will actually give you knowledge that will be looking at absolutely every single functional area within the organization. Operations management, marketing, accounting, finance, HR. It will not make you an expert on any of them, but will allow you to understand what every single department, what every single function within an organization is doing. It will allow you to understand what accountants are speaking about when they're speaking about liquidity, when they're speaking about financial statements, when they're speaking about trying to calculate the net present value. It will allow you to understand what we mean by pricing issues, by segmentation, by price discrimination, when we hear our people in marketing or in recruitment or in sales speak. It will allow you to understand how operations individuals are actually trying to optimize the efficiency of the processes within the organization, but it will not make an accountant out of you. It will not make a marketing manager out of you. Quite the opposite. It will allow you to transcend those functional areas to make decisions at a higher level. But notice that the MBA is not only about understanding how organizations work. It's also, as I said earlier, about understanding how we manage within those organizations. So it's about understanding how we ourselves as individuals can make a positive contribution and lead the organization and those working within it into higher outcomes, into better performance. It's about management, in other words. And here is where we bring in loads of skills. We could be speaking about anything from project management skills, presentation skills. It might be about being able to network, something as simple, perhaps, as being able to do some chit chat with individuals that we actually do not know. It might be about trying to negotiate our way through. It might be about managing teams, and most importantly, it might be about leading teams. But ultimately, it's about trying to understand that an MBA being a broad and a generic business and management qualification is trying to give you those skills that will bring versatility to you as an individual. And this is most important than ever, given the very uncertain, the very dynamic, the very changing world that we live in. So we keep hearing all the time that the pace of technological change is so fast that many of the jobs that we're actually doing today will not be in existence in 40 years' time, never mind 40 years' time, sometimes even in 20 years' time. Obviously, the current pandemic is really exacerbating some of those changes, and we're actually seeing those changing before our eyes incredibly, incredibly fast. But the key conclusion of this very, very changing world is the fact that we're being told, and we know, that we might be having to change our careers a number of times over our lives. Obviously, it is a bit pointless to be specializing in one specific area when this change requires versatility out of you. And this is where the MBA, this is where having a broad, this is where having a generic qualification that gives you insights into many, many different areas and makes you agile as an individual comes in incredibly useful. And it goes without saying that the MBA has been resilient for this very reason, the fact that it's incredibly agile and that prepares you to become a versatile manager. Ultimately, our MBA will prepare you for 5 specific skills. And this is indeed what's actually guiding the way I design the curriculum in all our MBA programs. We want to make sure that you can actually build your communication skills. We want to make sure that you can also build your collaboration skills. We also want to make sure that you can actually become more creative, that you can become a critical thinker, and then most importantly, that you can become confident. And when I speak about confidence, I don't necessarily speak about confidence in the traditional sense. It's not only about thinking of confidence in the sense that we want to be self-assured in our own abilities. But more than that, it's about having confidence on the opportunities that change, that uncertainty can bring. It is not when things are going very well that an investor makes a lot of money. It's actually when there's disruption in the market. It's not that a manager can prove himself or herself when things are very stable. A manager proves himself or herself when he or she is able to manage change and does it successfully. There's a lot of opportunity. It's about being not opportunistic, quite the opposite. It's about being optimistic about the future, and certainly being optimistic, being confident, if you wish, about those positive opportunities that change, that dynamism can actually bring. Therefore, I believe that an MBA is most useful, particularly in this very, very, very uncertain environment. Anyway, let us now focus a bit more on the very specifics about the Global MBA program. Now, a bit of institutional background about the University of Manchester, and indeed the Alliance Manchester Business School as being the institution ultimately that offers this MBA. So the University of Manchester is the largest campus-based university in the United Kingdom, with well over 30,000 students in campus, plus all the other part-time students that we actually have through our international centers doing MBAs. So obviously through Dubai, through Sao Paulo, through Shanghai, Singapore, Hong Kong, and so on. Our university is actually one that is quite old. It was actually established nearly 200 years ago in 1824. And it indeed has brought with it a lot of reputation. I already spoke about developments on graphene technology that led to the recent Nobel Prize in physics for Gaiman Novoselov, still academics at the University of Manchester, and I get to see them in campus from time to time, sometimes even in the coffee shop. It's quite amazing just to be behind a Nobel Prize at the queue for your coffee. But indeed, we've actually had up to 25 Nobel Prizes between academics and students at the University of Manchester throughout this time. Also, to mention that our university is made up of 3 key faculties. So we have a faculty of medicine and life sciences, one for engineering, and indeed as well a faculty of humanities. Each one of those faculties then contains a number of specialized schools. So within the faculty of humanities, we have our business school, so Alliance Manchester Business School, which is one of the first 2 business schools created in the United Kingdom back in 1965. So in essence, the phenomenon of business schools, which has existed in the United States for a long time, was created in the United Kingdom by a government decree back in 1965, when the government really wanted specialized management and business schools to be created in the country to try to train a new cadre of management practitioners. So in essence, the government created London Business School in the south and Manchester Business School in the north. London Business School, that was to be focused a lot on trying to train individuals on finance, and Manchester Business School, that was to be training managers into more behavioral aspects. In other words, that tended to prevail perhaps a lot more skills acquisition and the practice of management rather than finance in itself. But we still carry this DNA to this day, and indeed we actually bring in all this idea about skills acquisition to the extreme, particularly through our own very idiosyncratic teaching and learning approach, which we call the Manchester method. We invested heavily, very recently, into a new building, which we just opened last year. It's absolutely amazing, and I would very much so hope that many of you would be coming to Manchester to take workshops and indeed graduation and visiting us in our building, which is quite amazing. We're a triply accredited business school, so obviously we're accredited by the EFMD through Equis accreditation, which is a European accreditation body. Its American counterpart, the AACSB, and then at MBA level, we're also accredited by the Association of MBAs, or AMBA, which is a British institution. So in essence, we have what we call the Triple Crown, which is actually only in possession by less than 1% of business schools in the world. And then I'm sure you've already done plenty of research on rankings. There's plenty of rankings out there. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down, but we're consistently quite high up in the vast majority of them. In the very specific case of the Middle East Center, which we actually have in Knowledge Park in Dubai, we've established now for quite a while, since 2006. We've actually supported a large number of MBAs for a long time. So we've actually supported over 2,700 students from over 100 nationalities, and that's from the Middle East Center alone. And we've actually at this stage already graduated over 1,700 MBAs. So we were designated the best MBA program by Forbes last year, and indeed we recently received as well the top level of rating by the Knowledge and Human Development Agency in Dubai, the KHDA, so basically the regulator of transnational education in Dubai. right? And that is the very highest ranking that you could actually receive by the KHCA. And I believe that hardly any other school or any other program received it. So moving on, and again, just to mention the programs that we offer from the Manchester Global Part-time MBA to the Kelley-Manchester MBA, and obviously the Dubai Center is also supporting other programs from the University of Manchester, but I will obviously be focusing as MBA director on the MBA programs. I already alluded to the fact that we have a lot of presence abroad, and that obviously makes ours an incredibly international program, really. So in addition to having our main premises at the University of Manchester campus, we also have centers in the likes of Singapore and Hong Kong. Those centers have actually been in operation on behalf of Manchester since 1993, a long, long, long time. We have the Dubai Center, now nearly 15 years old, and indeed we also have a center in Shanghai and in Sao Paulo in Brazil, from which we actually recruit and support students, and to which you can actually indeed travel if you decide to take electives at any other center. We offer what we call a flying faculty model, which means that the type of experience that you receive if you take the Global MBA program from Manchester would be the exact same that you would receive if you're taking it in Dubai, in Shanghai, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, or in Sao Paulo. We're actually sending the same teams of academics all over the world to deliver the exact same program. But the international exposure does not finish with the fact that we actually have international centers. It's also really reflected on our curriculum. So far from localizing our curriculum, and just as I said that the type of delivery that you would receive in Manchester is the same that you would receive in Dubai or in China, the reason is because we actually make sure that our curriculum is fully global. We don't tend to focus on local companies as we actually have discussions and case studies. We actually tend to focus on multinational organizations so that our discussions can actually have a global remit. Obviously, and I already mentioned that in Dubai alone, we've received students from well over 100 nationalities. And as it happens, throughout our network of centers, at the moment, we're supporting students from over 100 nationalities. It is incredibly international. And not only that, so not only by virtue of where we deliver our program, where our students come from, and the globality of our curriculum, but it's also worth mentioning that even our academics and our staff are highly international. As you can tell by my accent, I'm not originally from Manchester, I'm from Barcelona in Spain. And indeed, a large percentage of our academics will also be from all over the world. We really want to make sure that our program is as international on absolutely every single aspect as it can get. Now, bear in mind also, and I alluded to it in the form of what we call the Manchester method, ours is an incredible practical approach to business and management education. So our Manchester method, or our very idiosyncratic or unique approach to teaching and learning, is one that is actually focused really on three tenets. Is the fact that we actually tend to make ours as practical and hands-on an approach to learning as possible. So when you actually attend workshops with us, you don't tend to just sit back and listen to whatever a lecturer tells you. No, quite the opposite. So most of the learning actually happens before or after the workshops. What happens is that you consolidate the knowledge that you've already learned, and you prepare for the knowledge that you will actually learn after the workshop, but you practice the skills that you need to acquire as part of this MBA, and indeed as well you consolidate that knowledge, and we tend to focus a lot on debate and on discussion. So there's a lot of experience on an MBA class. To an extent, the tutor that is in class actually becomes more of a facilitator rather than a lecturer in itself. Our job as academics in this case is to try to facilitate the sharing of knowledge that you guys bring from every single walk of life. I already mentioned there's people coming from pretty much every single industrial background, and indeed from every single nationality. And it is our job to try to make the most out of the richness that you guys as delegates bring into an MBA class. So the first one, as I said, as part of the Manchester method, is the fact that ours is an incredibly practical approach to teaching and to learning. Also, that we tend to focus a lot on group work. So as it happens, more than 50% of the assessed deliverables in the program are actually through group work. And that actually comes with its benefits. It is incredibly reflective of the requirements that the real business world has of you. You need to be a good team player. You need to be able to persuade teams. You need to be able to manage and lead teams. But sometimes it can actually be, particularly in a learning environment, quite difficult to manage. You will actually see that you have plenty of clashes with other individuals by virtue of having to work with people that come from totally different backgrounds, totally different professional contexts, and indeed totally different cultural contexts. And obviously, lots of different personalities. How do you actually lead people? How do you actually try to make sure you exert work from everybody when there's people that are trying to free ride on the work that you do? How do you actually agree on a way forward when everybody in your team, in your group, has a different idea about a specific case study? This is incredibly important. Finally, the Manchester method will actually get you to be incredibly reflective about your own participation in group work and indeed your own development as an individual. So remember those three tenets, all about practical learning, all about group work, and all about reflection. You will see that you will actually visit us 3 times a year. In essence, we actually, as part of a blended program, condense all the workshop residentials into week-long, normally, residentials made up of workshops, usually of 3 days each. There's a few variances. I'll guide you through them when I look at the structure. But indeed, there's a total of 30 days in the program that are actually consolidated in the form of workshop residentials. Rather than making you come to campus or virtually, literally, every weekend or every 2 weeks or every month, what we actually do is to try to make this as flexible a program as possible. We make you come on campus or online 3 times a year. And each one of those workshops will warranty you at the very least to 20, I don't know why I say 24 hours, in reality is well more than that, but just to have the formal note, if you wish, a minimum of 24 hours of teaching, which indeed is actually as much as you would receive, if not more, than in many full-time programs. As it happens, the curriculum in our Global MBA is the exact same as the curriculum in the full-time MBA program, which is delivered in slightly different ways. Quite interesting as well to our program is the fact that rather than taking a very traditional and pigeonholed or siloed perspective to subject areas, so rather than having a traditional course on marketing, a traditional course on operations, a traditional course on HR, a traditional course on finance, or a traditional course on accounting, we actually understand that the world is more interested in getting you to understand the interdependencies, the tensions, the relations between different functional areas, as it has expectations of you as a synthetic manager. So I'm more interested in you understanding what are the connections and those interdependencies between operations, so in other words, the inner workings of an organization and your consumers' perceptions, basically marketing, than looking at them separately. And likewise, for example, when we look at accounting and finance, rather than looking at them separately, I'm more interested in looking at what are the very direct connections between measuring financial value and creating it. In other words, between what traditionally is understood as being accounting, may that be financial accounting or management accounting, and value creation in finance. So in other words, the key tenets in corporate finance, for instance, of trying to look at dividends policies, financing policies, and investment policies. What we do is in this MBA is just try to join up those traditionally separate functional disciplines and try to bring them together wherever necessary to try to reflect the real world and the real organization a bit better. And all that is also underpinned by 2 business projects, a simulated one and a live business project one that you will actually be undertaking throughout the workshop, in addition, obviously, to a very rich portfolio of electives that I'm going to be commenting on later on. As I said earlier, ours is what we call a blended learning program, which combines or blends basically both online and face-to-face delivery elements. So in essence, we have an expectation of you coming to campus 3 times a year in this 2-year program. In essence, you come on campus for 5 days at the very beginning of the program to take an induction or a welcome event where you get to meet your colleagues, in addition to taking a workshop on leading and managing the global environment for 3 days, and a brief introduction to your simulation project, which you're going to be undertaking as part of the group for well into the first year. Then halfway through the semester, you again come for 6 days to take 2 workshops, a workshop on operationalizing and communicating value. So basically, again, one that looks at the tensions that exist between marketing and operations, and another workshop on strategy and competition, where we introduce you into the economics of strategy, and indeed, particularly where you actually get to understand the effect that interdependency has on the strategic decision-making process. Basically, we give you plenty of game theoretic insights to understand how to prepare better strategy in a competitive environment. That is then followed by a new workshop residential on your second semester. You come on campus again for 6 days in around March or April 2021, if you were to start in July. And you would be taking 3 days workshop on business accounting and finance, and a 3-day workshop on, again, leading and managing the global environment with a focus on HR, and obviously on organizational culture, so issues of organizational behavior, organizational design, change management, and so on. And then you move on to your second year, where again, you come on campus for 3 days. But when I say on campus, I don't really mean necessarily having to come to Dubai, because particularly as you go to elective stage in your 5th and 6th residential, you can actually choose to take your elective workshops pretty much anywhere you want in the world. So Dubai, indeed, if you want to stay close to home, or indeed you can come to Manchester, you can go to Shanghai, you can go to Hong Kong, to Singapore, or to Sao Paulo to take your workshops. And indeed, if you're time short, you can actually take some of those electives through what we call virtual workshops. Notice then that you start taking 4 days of strategy and competition, so a more traditional strategic course that puts pretty much everything that you've learned in the first year in context. So in this strategic course, strategy or strategic management, basically, you take that helicopter view that allows you to look at the organization from above. So once you've already understood the core disciplines, so once you understand what the operations department does, what marketing does, what finance does, what accounting does, what economics is about, what HR does, and so on, you're in a position to take that helicopter view, that synthetic view allows you to look at the organization from above and being able to look at strategy at the highest level. And then obviously, as I said, you take 3 electives throughout the program. Now, underpinning that second year, you also undertake your live business project as part of a group to really tackle and address a real business situation or a real management problem. So in essence, notice that there's a total of 31 days here included, but notice as well that this is actually a bit variable, because ultimately you can actually make it a bit shorter if you wish by taking virtual workshops for your electives, or indeed you can actually make it even a bit longer if you wanted. If you wanted, for instance, to take some of our longer electives. So we have electives, for example, in advanced strategic management, which rather than being 3-day workshops have 5-day workshops, or on big data analytics, that rather than being 3-day workshops are 4-day workshops, as you actually visit our data visualization lab here at the Kelley-Manchester Business School in Manchester, or indeed if you actually take some study tours in the likes of China, right? So you can actually even expand some of those workshops depending on the electives that you actually choose, or you can contract them if you wanted to take more virtual workshops because you are very time short, or because you don't want to travel, or because you cannot attend at the centers. It is indeed a very, very flexible program. And finally, as any MBA would be expected to have. We have a very, very rich set of what we call MBA plus type activity. So extracurricular activity that will allow you to build your personal and professional networks. So we actually have anything from online career seminars offered from Manchester, but our career service team will also attend workshop residentials in Dubai quite often, so you can actually meet them in person there, or you can actually meet them at any other center. Employability sessions, there's plenty of careers guidance. We have loads of networking events, guest speakers, both from Manchester and indeed also organized at our centers, including very much so in Dubai. You may have already attended some of our events, or you may have heard of some of our events, because we're actually quite prominent in Dubai, and particularly around the Middle East region. Okay. Sample of electives. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but you name it, we probably have it. We have at any one time anywhere between 22 and 25 electives. We tend to change them quite often depending on what our students want. But if you're interested in finance, we can do anything from strategic financial analysis, venture capital and private equity, to investment and portfolio management, to corporate turnaround, financial restructuring. If you're more interested on skills acquisition, you can be looking at classes on negotiation skills, or exploring management in practice is a way of, for example, looking at ways of looking at how you go about making decisions, basically, through a framework of inquiry. Or you might be interested on furthering your understanding about strategic decision-making processes, in which case you can actually be looking at advanced strategic management. You can be looking at international business strategy, marketing, anything from B2B, business-to-business marketing, to digital marketing strategy. You might be interested perhaps on entrepreneurship and innovation management. You might be interested perhaps on digital, so anything from big data analytics, which I already mentioned, to information systems and digital strategy, to the digital economy, managing disruptive technologies, a lot of different courses that we actually offer, right? We actually are about to introduce from July onwards 2 new courses on digital. For example, one on ecosystems platform strategies, and another one on fintech that is becoming quite a big area at the Manchester Business School. I've already spoken about how flexible our program is, and there's many aspects that make our program a very flexible one. First of all, from the fact that given our scale, we tend to have anywhere between 300 and 450 MBA students all over the world, throughout Manchester, Dubai, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Singapore, Sao Paulo, every single semester. And what that means is that because we never put you in a class of more than 30 students, we're offering loads of different workshops every single semester for every single class all over the world. And obviously that scale gives you a lot of choice to take electives that other programs might not be able to offer, and indeed a lot of flexibility in terms of the timings that we can make available to you. Now, obviously, we understand that all of you are taking this program part-time, and obviously life gets on its way. So you might be receiving promotions at work, you might be changing jobs completely, you might be getting married, or you might be experiencing a very period at work. So of course there is plenty of abilities for you to pause and to extend the program. And whilst it is incredibly feasible, and the vast majority of our students will complete the program within 2 years, we give you the flexibility to complete it up to 5 years. And you can actually pick it up really where you left it very easily, because again, we operate in a semesterly basis, so you can very quickly pick it up, and we're offering those courses constantly on a rollover basis all over the world. Ours is a very portable program as well, and many of our students, being so international, might end up taking up jobs or new professional opportunities in different parts of the world. And obviously the fact that we have so many international centers allows you to take your program with you uninterruptedly to any other part of the world. Many of our students actually will find themselves changing registration center as they move, say, from Dubai to Hong Kong, or to Singapore, or to China, or back to Europe. And and so on. Ours is a program that will require, on average, and notice that I'm actually saying on average because it depends on the courses that you're actually taking in that semester, and whether if you know a lot about finance or accounting, then of course the business accounting and finance course will be easy peasy for you. Or if you're a marketer, you might find operationalizing communicating value a bit easier than other individuals. But on average, the vast majority of students will tell us that they need to invest anywhere between 15 and 20 hours of personal study time on this program on a weekly basis. Now, of course, ours, as I said, is an incredibly flexible program. So that means that there will be a lot of peaks and troughs. So when you come to do workshops, you will definitely be doing 15 hours per day. And yes, you heard it right, 15 hours per day. So beyond the fact that you might be taking 8 hours per day with the academics and with the class, there will be plenty of expectations of you working back in the evening and sometimes even into the night to prepare presentations. So when you come on campus to take workshop, you will be very busy and you will be breathing that subject area for a good while. So of course, as you come to workshops on average for 6 days, the vast majority of cases, you're already doing a lot of that work, and that will mean that other times during the semester will allow you to have a lot of a smaller workload. You will also be very busy in preparation for the workshops and indeed when you're about to submit assignments. There's accelerated options for those of you that might be eligible to them. I'll speak about them a bit later, but in essence is if you're actually a holder of finance or accounting professional qualification like CIMA or ACCA or CPA, you might be able to receive exemption from our business accounting and finance course, and with that reduce the length of the program. Also, to mention that we have a lot of flexibility in that choice of electives and the fact that you can travel to take those electives all over the world, and indeed as well that you can actually do plenty of learning through our Blackboard virtual learning environment while you're not on campus face to face. And it is indeed that flexibility that we actually have that indeed has allowed us to ride the storm with the COVID-19 pandemic. So many programs have not been able, particularly programs that don't have any technological element, have not been able to get their students to progress throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. In our case, it was actually quite easy. So we could actually take all our applicants. Listen, it's as simple for you to either defer your workshops to the following semester until such a time as the pandemic allows us to have you in class again, or indeed you can actually take virtual workshops so that you don't interrupt your studies whatsoever. And again, it's that technological and innovative approach we've had on teaching and learning really since the early 1990s that has allowed us to respond very rapidly to the problems and obstacles imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic, really. Moving on, I already said that there are a number of MBA options that we actually offer from our Middle East Center. So our standard global MBA program, which I've already spoken through, it's a 24-month blended program. I already spoke about finance accelerated MBA options for those of you who already have some professional accounting or finance qualifications such as ACCA, CIMAs, CPA, CFAs, and so on. And then we also have what we call the Global Accelerated MBA for those of you who are incredibly experienced and senior, possibly either already at board of management or nearing really board of management. So basically for very senior individuals, this is a very small closed cohort of individuals that rather than taking all workshops in Dubai, need to travel around the world to take workshops in Dubai, in Manchester, and in China as a closed cohort. Again, that allows you to do it within 18 months. But there's a few extra admissions criteria that you need to meet. And obviously, it's perhaps just slightly less flexible in that we actually impose where you need to take your courses simply because you're doing as part of a close cohort of incredibly senior individuals. And then, obviously, as I said, we also offer what we call the Kelley-Manchester Global MBA, which is a program of studies that has been designed together with the Kelley School of Business, part of Indiana University in the United States, to give you access to what we call a dual MBA. So in essence, you will be taking half the classes with our global MBA students and the other half of the program with Kelley Direct MBA students online. And as you do so, then that means that you actually end up with two MBAs. You end up with the Manchester MBA and with the Kelley MBA. This is a very, very good program for those of you that not only need to market yourselves to international organizations that might actually include either European or American organizations, but those of you who might be interested on tapping into two business schools with everything that this brings. So the fact that you can tap into two sets of network of alumni, two sets of libraries, two sets of academics, two sets of premises, and what this program includes, again, is opportunities to go to Bloomington in Indiana, which is the headquarters of the University of Indiana, indeed the Kelley School of Business, and indeed then you can actually choose any center, so Dubai, Manchester, Hong Kong, Singapore, or Sao Paulo, to take the rest of workshops that you will be taking as part of the courses that you actually take with Alliance Manchester Business School. So a very, very versatile program. Now, just to mention that ours is an incredibly transformational experience. And again, I'm not going to delve too much into detail, but I've already mentioned the fact that you have plenty of opportunities to take electives overseas, plenty of MBA Plus activities that will include speaker events, careers events. You can tap into, particularly with Manchester alumni, onto more than 60,000 alumni all over the world. And obviously you have access to a very well-developed network of international centers that is basically not mirrored by any other business school or university anywhere in the world, really. Yeah. Just to give you a bit of an idea as to where our MBA students tend to come from, again, they tend to come from every single walk of life, from manufacturing to consultancy to energy to government public services, healthcare, telecoms, business accounting and finance, IT, hospitality, real estate, pretty much everywhere. We have, again, over 100 nationalities. And if you actually take our last cohort of the global MBA students here in January, the average age was 36, and 89% of our students were from outside of the United Kingdom, and 32% of our students were actually female. So basically 1/3. Those are some of the companies that we recruit MBAs from, again, as you can see, from pretty much every single sector. And having gone to this point, I'm just going to pass it on back to William so that he can actually very quickly guide you through the application process. So William, over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Xavier. So I'll just quickly guide you through the application process. The first thing you'll want to do is to obviously speak with one of our student counsellors just to see if the university would be the right fit for you, if you'd like to clarify any points, and if you'd like to obviously start your application. So you can do that by going on our website, www.manchester.ac.ae, and submit your callback request. We'll then be able to take that. One of our student or program counselors will be in contact with you and will clarify some details with you. Once you fit the program requirements and you are ready to move on with your application, we will ask you to complete an online application form. So we will ask you for your CV, bachelor's degree if you do have one, transcripts as well. You'll have to provide us with 2 references, so professional references, and you will have to write 2 essays as well, 2 personal essays. Once that is done, you will have to go through our admissions test called the Manchester Admissions Test, the MAT. It's a test that's around 45 minutes long. It's online. It's on 3 components, so verbal, numerical, and logical, 15 minutes each. And once that is complete, we will send your application to the admissions team, and you should hear from us very soon in regards to the outcome of your application. So if you'd like more information, you can always go on our website, manchester.ac.ae, and submit your callback request, and we'll be in contact with you very soon. If you are asking for requirements as well, usually for the 2-year MBA program, we usually require a degree, a bachelor's degree, as well as a minimum of 3 to 4 years work experience. And for those of you who have no bachelor's degree but have a lot of experience, so 8 to 9 years of work experience, there is an experiential entry as well. Moving on to the fees, of course, very important to a lot of you here. The full cost of the program is currently 36,297 Great British pounds, which is the equivalent to around 163,000 UAE dirhams. Now, this is payable in around 4 different installments. So this is done every 6 months or every semester. And that's about it for the structure of the payment. We currently offer a 10% early bird application discount. Now, this is applicable till the end of May, till the 28th of May to be precise. So if you'd like to be eligible for this discount, all you have to do is submit an application and you will be eligible for this 10% discount. We do also offer corporate discounts of up to 15% for employees of our partner companies here at the University of Manchester Middle East Centre. We also have the alumni discount of 20% for those of you who have previously studied with the University of Manchester. And if you do pay the full fees up front, we will provide you with a discount of 9%. You can only avail a single discount. These aren't, you can't add them up together. So that's about it. And you are, of course, able to apply for our next intake, which is in July 2020. Perfect. So we also have, as Xavier mentioned, the Kelley-Manchester MBA, which is currently 68,250 US dollars, which is the equivalent to just around 250,000 UAE dirhams. This yet again is payable in 4 different installments every 6 months of the program, every semester if you prefer, and there are scholarships available for this particular program of up to 15%. You can also apply for this program. There is only one intake every year, which is in July. Brilliant. I guess that concludes the presentation part of the session, Xavier. I suggest we move on to some of the questions.
Yeah. So, William, if you want to channel any of the questions that any of the attendees have asked in the chat box, I'll be more than happy to answer. I'm actually struggling to get the webcam to work, so I'll just switch it off, but I hope you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear. So we have Ahmed here who's asking, is this the right time to start an MBA program?
I don't think it's actually just the right time. I think it's the best time. So it goes without saying that with all the uncertainty there is surrounding the future of business and the economy, it's no better time for you to sell yourselves with an MBA with a very versatile qualification that shows how you can actually lead organizations, how you understand them, and how you can actually transcend industry-specific knowledge to be able to market yourself. So obviously, there's plenty of people in these very, very uncertain times that will actually have this really big decision to make an MBA simply because they believe that this is the time to do it. So sometimes when things are very rosy, when there's loads of opportunities to progress with your career, it's easy to find those opportunities because it's basically a seller's market, but it's not currently the case. It doesn't look to be the case going forward for quite some time. And in much the same way as we actually found ourselves during the last recession back following the financial recession back in 2008, 2009, where we actually saw lots of people wanting to do MBAs. We believe that it is quite likely that there might be lots of people interested in doing an MBA during these difficult times, precisely for these reasons.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Xavier. We have another question, I believe, from Hassan, who's asking about the alumni network. So he's just asking, how strong is Manchester's alumni network, and is the network on the 2-year program as strong as the Global Accelerated network, or this is just one whole MBA network that we provide our students with?
It tends to be one whole alumni network. Now, it goes without saying that you will actually be creating your own sub-networks if you wish. So those people that you go to class with whom you might actually gel better because you've worked together, because you share interests, or simply by personality, it's quite likely that you will end up making your own friendships and your own networks as you actually go through the program. That goes without saying. And there's plenty of stories we actually have from individuals that have ended up setting up businesses together after they've actually met in the Global MBA, or individuals that have actually offered jobs to each other, or indeed we even have fortunately loads of stories of people that have actually ended up marrying as a result of the program. But those are perhaps more the very individual connections that you actually make as you navigate through the program. It goes without saying that we tend to organize plenty of activities at center level, or indeed at program level, where we actually invite everybody. So there's plenty of speaker events, there's plenty of career events, or plenty of Dubai Center led activities where pretty much everybody is actually invited at the same time, so everybody gets the exact same opportunity. And it goes without saying as well that you don't only need to tap into the alumni networks that you actually have access to through your study mates, those who are actually joining at the same time as you, or those who are actually studying even if at different semesters at the same time as you are. But there are plenty of students that have graduated for a long time, people that have even graduated from other parts of the university that are still attending our alumni events as University of Manchester alumni, or indeed plenty of alumni from other parts of the world. If you actually visit the likes of Hong Kong, Singapore, or China, that will actually welcome you if that's what you're looking for. So we're quite good at putting people in touch as you actually travel to other destinations, if that's what you actually want to do.
Brilliant, thank you, Xavier. We have another one here. Actually, it seems to be quite repetitive as well. We seem to have a lot of engineers listening to us, and of course many of them have a very technical background, and they're asking whether the MBA would be good to complement with their very technical skills.
Yeah. Well, it's actually quite to be expected that you will be getting loads of engineers attending these sessions, because a large percentage of MBAs tend to be engineers. As it happens, the MBA, being a business qualification that is, again, quite broad or quite generic, tends to attract lots of engineers, lots of project managers, lots of people that have a very technical background, simply because they perhaps want to move to more commercial roles, or because they want to get managerial positions. They're the typical roles of individuals that have been pigeonholed into the organizations into very technical positions, and they want an MBA precisely to be able to convince the organizations they work for that they actually go beyond that very technical background to be able to understand how organizations work and being able to take more synthetic, more managerial positions to run the organization forward. So in other words, to get them outside of that pigeonhole in which organizations and other people working with them have actually placed them.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'll just take another couple of questions. I think one is how practical is the program?
Incredibly, very, very, very practical. So as I said, far from trying to get you to understand and just regurgitate what a Porter's 5 forces analysis is, what are the 4 P's or whatever amount of P's they actually have in marketing now, or how to calculate the capital asset pricing method in corporate finance. Our interest is to try to get you to understand the degree to which organizations really are using those frameworks, those models, those theories. What are they good for? What are they not so good for? How are they contributing to you understanding the real business environment better? And indeed, how can you be in a position to manage organizations into more effective organizational bodies? This is incredibly important. And as I already mentioned earlier, my guiding beacons as I actually try to design and improve our curriculum is that beyond content-based intended learning outcomes, I get all our MBAs to build, again, collaboration skills, communication skills, creativity, that they're in a position to become critical thinkers, and that they become more and more and more confident. And obviously, much of what we cover in the MBA is merely an excuse, is nearly a platform that allows us to develop those skills. So in many regards, you can actually say that those theories, those frameworks, those models that I just mentioned, may that be that Porter's 5 forces analysis, may that be a SWOT analysis, may that be the 4 P's in marketing, may that be that capital asset pricing method, or how to calculate an Nash equilibrium. I mean, you can actually access all that knowledge for free at the click of a button from your smartphones. You only need to go to Wikipedia and try to read on them. What's important is to contextualize that knowledge, to understand the degree to which organizations really use it or not, and what this is actually useful for. And it's the fact that we actually recruit people, again, from absolutely every single walk of life that are quite a senior level. So we're actually not taking undergraduate students. We're not taking people that just graduated from college. No, we're actually getting people that are on average are around 36 years old. They have quite a bit of experience, usually in mid-management positions. And it's trying to contextualize this knowledge to the experiences that all of you have in your own professional careers that allows us really to make this program incredibly practical. But remember, it is very important that you remember that what we're trying to do is we're trying to build skills, and mainly collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity, and confidence.
Perfect, fantastic. Thank you, Xavier. We'll take just one last one. I can see that a couple of people are asking, they seem like older gentlemen or older individuals, and they're just asking, is there any age limit for the MBA? Is there a better time to start an MBA as well in terms of age, or is it just good for anyone to kind of join?
That's two slightly different questions. Is there an age limit? No, there isn't. But is there a better time to do an MBA? Well, what I would recommend is for people to come and do an MBA once they already have a bit of experience. So as I said, our average age is 36, at least last semester. Now, obviously, that's an average. The range is much wider. So we actually attract students. I think we actually even had one student that was 26 last semester. And we get people that are well into their 60s as well. However, what I would really point out is that to make the most out of this MBA, one, which will actually really get you to engage with others in a very practical sense, with a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, a lot of critical thinking, I would actually really encourage people not to do an MBA until they're actually seasoned enough to be able to get the most out of it. So again, I said we got even one individual that was 26 in the program last semester. That individual had started working very, very, very early and was incredibly talented and very, very promising whilst being very, very young. But usually we would want our applicants to be quite experienced by the time they come to the MBA so they can make the most out of it. So if anything, is there any limit? No, there's not any limit as to how old you need to be in the program. But if anything, I would nearly say that there's nearly a limit as to how young you can actually be when you register into the program. And my recommendation is try to make sure you join an MBA when you already have some level of experience. Well, actually, as it happens, we will not accept you, or our admissions committee will not accept you if you don't have enough experience, really.
Perfect. That's very clear. Thank you very much, Xavier. I'm just conscious of time. I know that you're very busy, and Xavier as well, so we don't want to keep you too long. I apologize if I can't take all of your questions. I know that there are many. I will try to answer some of them before leaving the session myself. But in the meantime, we'd just like to thank you for of course, attending this session, this information session in regards to the Manchester Global Part-time MBA. We do hope you enjoyed the session and the very nice words of Xavier Duran, and we hope to hear from you very soon. Of course, we do still accept applications for the July intake this year. For more information, as I previously mentioned, please visit our website, manchester.ac.ae, and if you need any further clarification, do submit a callback request and we will get in touch with you as soon as possible. Thank you very much, everyone, and I do hope you have a very good end to your afternoon, and do please stay safe and take care.
Thank you, everybody.